What the hell are you doing with my father? Have you no shame? Dorian Kane's voice thundered through the grand parlor like a bomb exploding through stained glass. The doors slammed open behind him, and the moment froze. Maya William flinched, her heart leaping into her throat. She instinctively tightened her arms around the frail body of Samuel Kane, his thin nightshirt clinging to his back, soaked in sweat from the short walking exercise. She had just helped him to his feet, guiding him across the living room, when his knees buckled and she caught him, his face inches from her chest. Their bodies close out of sheer necessity, not choice. But to Dorian Kane, who had just walked in unannounced through the main hall, it looked like something entirely different. "You filthy little snake," Dorian spat, storming forward. "Is this what you do now? Throw yourself at a helpless old man? Disgusting." "No, Mr. Kane, wait. It's not what it looks like," Maya gasped, stepping back, her arms raised in defense. "Please. He asked me to help him walk today. His therapy's been cut. And Maya lowered Samuel gently into his wheelchair, keeping one hand on his shoulder for balance. "Mr. Kane, I was just what?" Dorian snapped. "Helping him into bed? Warming him up with a hug? Jesus Christ. Don't you dare lie to me," he roared. "I walk in and find the housemaid grinding against my father like a vulture circling its prey. You think just because he's weak, he's easy to manipulate?" Samuel, still catching his breath, sat trembling in his wheelchair. "Dorian, stop." But Dorian wasn't listening. "You gold-digging tramp," he hissed. "I should have known better than to let someone like you into this house, pretending to care, creeping around like you belong here." He reached forward and shoved her hard. Maya lost her footing, falling sideways against the floor, her arm scraping the leg of the table. A sharp crack of pain surged through her elbow. A thin line of blood bloomed across her forearm. Gasps erupted around them, the butler, the cook, a passing gardener at the door. The butler had seen it. So had Marcia, the cook. 2 junior house staff hovered in the hallway, eyes wide with horror. "My God," someone whispered. People began to murmur. A housemaid leaned toward another staff member, whispering, "She's been alone with Mr. Kane for hours every day. God knows what else she's done. Shameless girl, throwing herself at him like that." A wave of heat rushed to Maya's cheeks, not from shame, but from fury. Not a single soul in that room knew what had happened 3 hours earlier. Samuel had tried to stand, just for a moment. He had looked at Maya, his voice quiet but full of resolve. "Let's try again today. Just a few steps. For me." And she had helped him, patiently, gently. She had walked beside him, supported him, cleaned the sweat from his brow when he pushed too hard. When his legs gave out, she had caught him. That's what Dorian had walked in on. Maya sat up slowly, shaking, trying to steady her breath. They cut the therapy schedule," she stammered. "The agency dropped his in-home therapist 3 weeks ago. He begged me to help. I just followed the routine, doctor. Lorne gave him, I didn't." He stepped forward and grabbed a fistful of Maya's hair, yanking her to her knees. She let out a cry of pain, of fear, of disbelief. "You're done here," he growled. "Get your things, get out, and if I see you near my father again, I'll call the police." "No, please, please," Maya sobbed, her hands gripping his wrist. "Don't do this. I didn't mean any harm. I have no one else. My mother. She's sick. I need this job. I'll do anything. Just don't take this from me." Duh. Samuel struggled again in his chair. "That's enough," he roared, stronger than he'd sounded in weeks. "Let her go, Dorian." Dorian turned, panting, sweat beading on his temple. "You don't know what she was doing, Dad. I know exactly what she was doing." Samuel interrupted, his voice ragged. "She was helping me when no one else would. Because your precious staff and their budget cuts left me to rot in this chair." Dorian stared at his father, stunned. "She caught me before I hit the ground today. She's the reason I can feel my damn legs again." Samuel added, "You want the truth? That woman Maya showed more compassion in her hands than you've shown me in years." Dorian hesitated. The room fell silent. His hand loosened. He turned and stared at his father, and what he saw shocked him. Disappointment. Samuel's face was pale, but not with fatigue, with shame. His mouth trembled, but his eyes held steady. "I didn't raise you to be this," the old man said. "Not this." Dorian stood frozen. Maya scrambled up, humiliated, her pride shattered, her dignity torn, her hands still trembling as she wiped the blood from her chin. And then she ran, out of the room, out of the house. The murmurs behind her didn't follow, only the heavy silence of guilt. Dorian Kane stood by the window of his father's study, arms crossed tightly, jaw locked, eyes refusing to blink. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist, but inside him, the storm had only just begun. Behind him, the room was quiet. The house manager, Alan, lingered in the doorway, unsure if he should speak. Finally, with a hesitant breath, he asked, "Sir, would you like me to personally escort Miss William out?" Dorian didn't turn. "No," he said curtly. "She'll leave when she's ready. I'm not running a prison here." Alan hesitated. "Then should I notify the agency? Her contract?" "She broke more than her contract," Dorian snapped, cutting him off. "She broke trust. She took advantage of a vulnerable old man in his own home." With a nod, Alan retreated, closing the door quietly behind him. Dorian let out a long breath, finally turning toward the old family portrait above the fireplace. Samuel stood tall in it, decades younger, his wife beside him, and a boy of 12, Dorian, staring up with pride in his eyes. Now that boy was a man grown hard by years of competition, betrayal, and bottom lines. And yet he couldn't shake the image of Maya's hands steadying his father. Not seductive, not calculating, just focused, controlled, human. He rubbed his temples. No, he couldn't doubt himself. He saw what he saw. Downstairs, Maya moved through the guest hallway with slow, deliberate steps. Her suitcase, an old, scuffed black one, sat half-packed on the edge of her bed. Her resignation letter was already written, folded neatly in the front pocket of her tote bag. She picked up a framed photo from the bedside table. Her mother, back in Georgia, standing in front of the small house they had nearly lost twice. Maya had sent half her paychecks home, every month, without fail. Working for the Kanes wasn't a privilege, it was a necessity. Until now. A knock sounded on the door. Not hard, not soft, familiar. She opened it. Samuel sat in his wheelchair, head tilted slightly, eyes searching her face. He looked exhausted, his body more slumped than usual, his left hand trembling faintly in his lap. "I asked Alan to bring me down," he said, voice weak but firm. "Had to see you. You shouldn't be out of bed." He gave her a lopsided smile. "Can't trust a billionaire's temper tantrum to tell the whole story, can we?" She stepped aside and let him roll in. The room smelled faintly of lavender and starch, and the only light came from the small lamp beside the bed. Samuel wheeled closer and reached into the inner pocket of his sweater. He pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "It's from Dr. Klein. Updated rehab schedule. You've followed it better than the last 3 specialists combined." Maya didn't take it. He sighed. "He's wrong, you know. I don't want to talk about him. He's not a bad man." "Oh, he treated me like I was," she said, her voice tight. "Like I was trash, like I was disposable." Samuel looked down. "He's afraid." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Of me?" "No," he said. "Of himself, of what he saw, and how it made him feel." There was a long pause. "I thought," Samuel continued slowly, "that raising a son meant giving him all the tools I never had, a good education, money, a legacy. But I forgot to give him something else." "What?" "Discernment. Mel." Maya finally took the paper from his lap, folding it once more and placing it on the dresser. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "You need rest." He looked up at her, eyes damp with something deeper than exhaustion. "So do you." Back upstairs, Dorian stood at the top of the staircase, watching the shadows flicker below. Something pulled at him. Guilt? Regret? No, he told himself it was clarity. He was doing the right thing. His father needed structure, not sentiment. Discipline, not dependence. Still, he made his way down the stairs, slowly. As he reached the hallway, he caught a glimpse of light beneath the guest room door, his father's voice murmuring low and warm. Then Maya's voice, calm, steady, like a melody he couldn't place. He stopped. He shouldn't listen, but he did. Why didn't you defend me? Maya's voice. I tried, Samuel replied. No, you defended your decision to keep me, not me. Dorian's stomach twisted. I didn't have the words, Samuel said. I failed you. I failed him too. I'm not asking you to choose between us, Maya said. But I won't stay where I'm not respected. There was silence. Then Samuel, almost a whisper. Will you give him time? Maya's answer came slowly, with weight. Time doesn't cure rot, Mr. Kane. It only hides the smell. Dorian turned and walked away, quietly, each step a stone on his back. In the days that followed, Maya stayed in her room. She packed slowly, sorting through memories that didn't belong to her, and yet had shaped her. She avoided eye contact with the staff. She refused the hush of whispers that followed her through the hallways. She didn't explain. She didn't plead. She was done explaining. The truth didn't beg to be believed. She was sitting on the edge of the bed late one evening, her suitcase zipped, when she saw a white envelope on the dresser. She hadn't put it there. Inside, a note written in precise cursive. You changed my life more in 8 months than my son did in 40 years. If this house loses you, it loses its soul. Samuel Kane. She folded it, pressed it to her chest. No tears came. She was beyond tears. She had dignity. She had truth. If you feel for Maya in this moment, give this video a like, and comment where you're watching from. You might find someone near you watching too. No. But as she looked once more at the room she was leaving behind, a sliver of something unfamiliar crept in. Not anger. Not fear. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone else had started to see. The morning after Maya received Samuel's note, the Kane estate felt different. Not quiet or no. The silence had always lived here, but heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Maya stood in the kitchen, her suitcase parked by the back door, coat folded neatly over it. Her uniform was pressed, hair tied back as always. She didn't want to leave in a storm. She would leave with grace. The way she entered, Rosalind, the head cook and one of the few staff who never whispered behind Maya's back, walked in holding a steaming mug. She set it down in front of her. Chamomile, for the nerves, she said. I'm all right, Maya replied softly. You don't have to be, Rosalind said, giving her a look that said she'd seen this kind of thing before. But you do have to walk out of here with your head up. Maya gave her a small smile. That's the only way I know how. They shared a quiet moment. Then a voice echoed from the hallway, calm, direct, familiar. Miss William, a word, please. Maya turned. Dorian Kane stood there, tailored suit crisp, shoes gleaming. But his usual air of authority was clouded by something else today, uncertainty, maybe even discomfort. Rosalind glanced between them, then slipped away. Dorian stepped into the kitchen, hands tucked in his pockets. For a man so used to controlling every room he entered, he looked like he wasn't sure where to start. I owe you an apology, he said at last. Maya said nothing. He cleared his throat. What I said, what I assumed, it was wrong. She let the silence stretch a little longer than polite. You didn't just assume. You judged. You humiliated me. I know. Do you? He looked away, the muscles in his jaw tightening. No excuse I give would be enough. I let fear do the talking. Maya's brow furrowed. Fear of what? He hesitated. Of losing control. Of seeing my father depend on someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone I didn't trust. You didn't try to, she said. He nodded. That's on me. Maya reached for her suitcase handle. I appreciate the apology, but I'm still leaving. I figured, he said quietly, but before you do, there's something you should see. She studied his face. It wasn't smug or manipulative this time, just tired, sincere. He motioned toward the hallway. Please. Against her better judgment, she followed him through the estate. He led her not upstairs or into the main drawing room but down, toward the old east wing. It had once been a nursery. Now it served as storage, or so she thought. Dorian opened a door she'd never seen unlocked. Inside, walls lined with documents, medical files, photographs, Samuel's rehab records, security footage, staff reports. This is where I manage my father's care when I'm not here, Dorian said. Surveillance, logs, everything. I review it all. But I hadn't looked through the last 3 months. He walked over to the monitor, tapped a few keys, and pulled up footage from the living room 3 days ago. It showed Maya gently encouraging Samuel as he took his first steps unaided. She stood behind him, hands ready but never clutching. She didn't rush him. She didn't praise herself, just offered soft words of support. Then footage from the kitchen, Samuel laughing, something rare and raspy. Maya was showing him how to make scrambled eggs with one hand, the way she guided him, not like a servant, not even like a nurse but like a friend. Then footage from the very moment Dorian had walked in and exploded. The angle showed clearly. Samuel had begun to collapse. Maya caught him, her arms wrapped around him purely for support. The intimacy Dorian thought he saw wasn't there. He let the video play. Maya watched silently, not because she needed proof of her own actions, but because now he needed it. When the screen went dark, Dorian turned to her. I jumped to conclusions. I didn't look. I didn't think. And worst of all, I didn't ask you. Maya's expression didn't soften, but her voice did. Why are you showing me this now? Because I saw the letter my father wrote you. Her eyes flickered. I may not understand the way you do things. Dorian continued. But I understand loyalty when I see it. He trusts you. And he's different with you. Maya crossed her arms. He's vulnerable with me. That doesn't mean I'm manipulating him. I know. I believe that now. And I want to make it right. She raised an eyebrow. With a video and a late apology? No, he said. With honesty. And maybe a request. A request? I want you to stay. Maya looked at him, stunned. After what you said? He nodded. Because of what I said, I was raised to think weakness needed to be hidden. That vulnerability was dangerous. You've taught him, maybe both of us, that healing starts with honesty. With care. With being human. She studied him. The man in front of her was still the Dorian Kane of Wall Street headlines. But there was something peeling beneath the armor. A crack of humility. A trace of truth. And if I stay? She asked cautiously. You don't answer to me, he said. You answer to no one. You stay as my father's companion, his aide, his friend, and I stay the hell out of your way. Maya was quiet for a long beat. Then she said, one condition. Name it. You say it publicly. You clear my name to everyone in this house. I will not walk these halls like a ghost. Dorian nodded. You'll have it. Maya stepped back. The room felt too small suddenly, the emotions too large. You've got work to do, she said. So do you, he replied. And just like that, something shifted. Not a grand revelation, not forgiveness, but the first fragile stone, laid in the rebuilding of something broken. Outside, the sun began to push through the clouds. Inside, a man who once judged too fast began to learn that justice doesn't come from assumption, it comes from truth, no matter how long it takes to see it. The Kane dining hall hadn't seen this much tension since Samuel's stroke. The long mahogany table, usually silent, dignified, was now the site of whispered debates and sideways glances. Dorian stood at the head, arms firm at his sides, his voice level but clear. Before anyone else speaks another word behind closed doors, I'll say this plainly. Maya William is not leaving this house. She never should have been asked to. Around him, the room froze. Staff members looked at one another nervously. A few lowered their eyes. Others looked stunned. And Rosalind, from the far end, cracked the ghost of a smile. Maya stood to the side, spine straight, not out of pride but necessity. Even now, the murmurs didn't stop. Her skin still bore the weight of suspicion, of lies whispered with confidence. But now finally she wasn't the only one speaking the truth aloud. Dorian continued. Every assumption I made was based on a lie I told myself. That my father was too weak to know who to trust. That I was the only one who could protect him. I was wrong. He trusted her. I failed them both. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Let me be absolutely clear. Maya William acted with integrity, patience, and care. If anyone here has a problem with that, it's your problem, not hers. Rosalind stepped forward first, setting down the tray she had been holding. Then I think we owe her more than just silence, Mr. Kane. A soft wave of nods followed. Not everyone, but enough. Maya's chest rose slowly with breath. Her eyes met Dorian's for just a second, and he gave a brief, barely perceptible nod, a gesture that said, this was only the beginning. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to the sunroom, her favorite place in the house. Samuel sat there, a book in his lap, blanket over his legs, the sun warming his face. She hadn't spoken to him since the meeting. Not really. They had shared space, but not words. Quite the press conference, he said without opening his eyes. Maya chuckled, easing into the chair beside him. He rehearsed. He's his mother's son, after all. She always knew how to command a room. A moment passed. Why did you ask me to stay? She asked. Samuel turned his head slightly toward her. Because I'm still alive, Maya. And people who are alive don't need pity. We need purpose. You could have found someone else. I didn't want someone else. His voice was quiet. I wanted you. You didn't treat me like a project. You treated me like a man learning to walk again. Maya looked away. Not everyone saw it that way. They will, he said firmly. Eventually, they always do. Truth has a way of surviving longer than lies. Silence hung between them, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was shared, like the comfortable quiet between two people who had fought through the same storm. As days passed, the house began to recalibrate. Dorian stayed longer each afternoon, sometimes joining them for tea, sometimes just watching from afar. He never interrupted. He didn't explain himself. He simply showed up. One afternoon, as Maya adjusted Samuel's position on the patio, Dorian approached with a small wooden box in hand. I found this in storage, he said, setting it gently on the table. Thought it might belong in the sunlight. Maya opened it slowly. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, of Samuel's younger years. Black and white prints of a stronger man, full of energy, posing beside fast cars, smiling at his late wife, holding a tiny, serious-eyed toddler who would grow into Dorian himself. Samuel blinked hard. I thought these were lost. You kept saying that, Dorian said. But they were right where you left them. You just forgot where to look. Maya picked one up. Samuel, hair windblown, holding a fishing rod, laughter frozen in time. She handed it to him gently. Maybe we should frame a few, she said. Samuel nodded slowly. I'd like that. Later that night, as Maya walked through the halls toward her room, she heard faint voices coming from the old office. She's changed him, Alan whispered. She's still just staff, came another voice, sharp, bitter. He's only keeping her because he's guilty. Maya didn't slow down. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. She had heard worse. But as she reached the stairs, she caught sight of Dorian at the top landing. He had heard them too. For a moment, they just stared at each other. He didn't speak. Neither did she. But in his eyes, she saw something stronger than guilt. Now resolve. The next morning, Maya entered the kitchen to find a letter waiting on the counter. Thick cream paper, embossed. She unfolded it carefully. Miss William, as of today, your title is no longer staff. Meh. You are now appointed as Director of Personal Rehabilitation and Senior Care for Mr. Samuel Kane. This role comes with full executive status within the household management structure. Your salary will reflect your position. But more importantly, your authority will match it. Dorian Kane. She read it twice, then again, then once more. When she looked up, Rosalind was smiling from the stove. He's learning, she said. Maya nodded, still holding the letter. We all are. That evening, she walked Samuel through his paces, slow, deliberate steps across the stone walkway. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting the garden in soft amber light. His hand gripped hers. His breath was steady. Feels like I'm reclaiming parts of myself, he said. You are. They stopped at the bench near the roses. Saturday, she joined him. You know, he said quietly, my son was raised in a world where power was the only language that mattered. You taught him another one. What's that? Humility. Maya smiled. It's not easy to learn. No, he agreed. But it's the only way to grow. In the silence that followed, the sounds of the estate softened. No whispers. No judgment. Just the rustle of wind, and the slow rebuilding of something far more powerful than status trust. And though Maya knew storms might come again, she also knew something else. This time, she wouldn't face them alone. The sun was still rising when Maya stepped into the greenhouse behind the Kane estate, a place Samuel used to frequent before his stroke. It was overgrown now, but sunlight poured through the glass ceiling, giving life to vines that climbed recklessly across wooden beams. A thin layer of dust coated everything, but the air smelled alive, green, earthy, full of memory. Maya knelt by the old workbench, brushing away a few leaves. She found the old journal Samuel had kept there, still wrapped in a plastic bag to protect it from the moisture. It felt strange to hold something so personal, yet comforting. In this house, where history had so often been buried or polished away, something unfiltered was rare. She opened it slowly. Inside were scrawled notes in Samuel's firm, uneven handwriting, lists of seedlings, ideas for a community garden, notes about staff birthdays, even a passage about Dorian as a boy, curious and restless, once caught sneaking tomatoes from the vines. She smiled. Behind her, footsteps crunched against gravel. Dorian. "I didn't know anyone still came out here," he said. Maya didn't look up. "Not many do, but I thought maybe this place deserved a little light again." Dorian stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. He used to spend hours in here. Said it was the only place he felt truly grounded. Funny, she said. For a man who built empires with glass and steel. That was the problem, Dorian muttered. He spent his life building things too tall to touch the ground, forgot how to get his hands dirty. He watched her gently flip another page in the journal. He still wants to build the community garden, Dorian added. He talks about it when he's tired. Says you'd help him. I would, Maya said softly. But not if it's just a show. Dorian tilted his head. You think everything I do is for show? I think, she replied evenly, that you're learning how to tell the difference. He didn't argue. Back at the main house, Samuel sat in the sunroom, a soft blanket across his knees, eyes closed. He listened to the wind tick the windows. Some mornings he woke with a fire in him. Others, like today, he was quieter, slower. Rosalind brought him tea, and he sipped it slowly. She's in the greenhouse again? He asked. She is, Rosalind said. With your son. Samuel chuckled softly. Maybe she'll teach him how to grow something other than his ego. Rosalind laughed, then looked at him more seriously. You should tell her what you told me. He looked at her. Not yet. She deserves to know. I know, Samuel murmured. But I'm not ready to admit I made the biggest mistake of my life. Not aloud. Rosalind nodded, understanding. Then do it before someone else does. That afternoon, Maya returned to the house to find a letter slid beneath her door. The envelope bore no name, just her initials, neatly printed in gold ink. Inside was a single sheet. Miss William, your appointment as director stands, but I would ask that you meet me in my office at 4 p.m. today. This is not a reprimand. This is a conversation I should have had with you long ago. Dorian Kane. At 4 p.m. sharp, she knocked once and entered. Dorian sat behind the wide oak desk, the same one his father had used for years. But the way he sat now, more grounded, less guarded, made him seem like a different man. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please. Maya sat, crossing her legs neatly. What is it you want to talk about? He took a breath. I've been reviewing the estate finances. That's not part of my department. It is now, he said, because part of my father's legacy is about to get a second life. And I want you involved. She raised an eyebrow. Go on. He leaned forward. I'm opening the community garden. Not for PR. Not for headlines. For real people. And I want you to manage it. Maya blinked, surprised. I want it to be more than vegetables, he continued. A place for the elderly, for veterans, for kids who never had a backyard. A place where people learn how to grow something together. Maya sat back slowly. That's a lot of trust for someone you nearly fired. Nah, it's exactly because I nearly fired you, Dorian said. You showed more character in the worst moment of your life than most people show in a lifetime. She considered him. This garden, it'll need support, tools, funding, outreach. You'll have it, full control. Hire who you want, fire who you don't. Maya thought for a long moment, then nodded. All right, he blinked. Just like that? I told you once. I don't need apologies. I need actions. This is a start. He smiled faintly. Then we begin. That evening, Samuel sat beside the fireplace. He had asked to be wheeled there, insisting on feeling the warmth of real flame instead of sunlight. Maya joined him. I hear you've been recruited into gardening again, he said, a twinkle in his eye. She smiled. I hear you planted the first seed long ago. They sat quietly. Then he said, there's something I've been avoiding telling you. She looked at him. When you first came here, he began, voice slower now. I didn't hire you just for your resume. I hired you because you reminded me of someone. Who? My sister. She died when I was a teenager. She was strong, clear-eyed. She didn't flinch when the world was cruel. You carry that same fire. Maya swallowed. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to. But I think. Maybe that's why I trusted you so fast. And why it hurt so much to see Dorian tear you down. She reached over and laid a hand gently over his. You didn't fail me, Mr. Kane. I failed both of you, he said. But maybe we get to fix things now. She nodded. Maybe we do. Outside, the grounds crew began clearing the land near the east wing. The soil was dark, ready. Dorian watched from the window. Not as a leader. Not as a billionaire. Just a son. A man finally learning how to plant something real. Maya stepped beside him, arms crossed. You think it'll grow? He asked. She answered without hesitation. Only if we nurture it. The first day of work on the community garden began with a morning fog blanketing the Kane estate. Mist curled low over the fields behind the east wing, wrapping the land in a hush. Maya stood at the edge of the marked-off plot, boots damp, arms crossed over a soft flannel coat. This was no longer just a garden, it was a promise. She breathed in the cool, earthy air as trucks began arriving, some bringing compost, others tools and seedlings. Dorian had kept his word. Everything she requested was delivered, from irrigation kits to accessible pathways for elderly visitors. Still, she felt the tension in her shoulders. Building was always harder than planting. Behind her, Rosalind approached with 2 mugs of coffee. You're out here like a general before the troops. Maya smiled, accepting one. Feels more like a gardener waiting on rain. You'll get your rain. And your roots, Rosalind said. Just don't forget to rest. Maya gave her a look. Since when have you known me to rest? Rosalind chuckled and walked off toward the house. Moments later, Maya saw Dorian stepping onto the grass. Sleeves rolled up, surprising her. You're early, she said. I figured if I'm going to be involved, I should know what topsoil looks like, he replied. She tossed him a pair of gloves. Then dig in. They worked side by side for a while, clearing bramble and hauling mulch. As they did, volunteers began to arrive. Local teens, older veterans from the nearby retirement home, 2 women from the church who brought muffins and stories about their grandchildren. Each one brought something different: energy, wisdom, laughter, even quiet grief. Mid-morning, an older black man named Earl approached Maya with a slow, confident gait and a voice that carried gravel and warmth. You the one organizing all this? Yes, sir, Maya said, offering her hand. Maya William. He shook it firmly. Name's Earl. I fought in Nam. Came back and never had soil to call mine. Figured I'd give yours a try. Maya smiled. You're more than welcome. He glanced at the rows she had outlined. You know, the soil remembers everything. Blood, sweat, roots, even betrayal. She looked at him. You think it'll forgive us? He shrugged. Not its job to forgive, just to give us another chance. That stayed with her. By noon, the plot was humming with life. Children dug furrows and dropped seeds like treasure. Elders leaned on canes and pointed out where the sun would fall best. Maya moved through it all like a quiet current, guiding, adjusting, encouraging. This was what she was meant for. Not just caregiving, but cultivating. Lives. Second chances. In the distance, Samuel sat in a wheelchair under a canopy, watching it unfold. Dorian stood beside him. You see what she's done in a day? Samuel said. I see it, Dorian replied, shielding his eyes from the sunday. She's built more community in 6 hours than this family's done in 60 years. Dorian looked over at Maya, She was laughing with a boy who had accidentally sprayed her with the hose. Her face, usually reserved, was lit with ease. "She makes it look effortless," he murmured. Samuel glanced at him. "You should tell her that. Men like you wait too long, and then wonder why the world doesn't wait back." Dorian was quiet. Later, as the volunteers packed up and the sun dipped lower, Maya stayed behind to sweep the shed floor and stack the unused tools. Dorian entered quietly, holding a folded paper in his hand. "Busy as ever," he said. She glanced up. "You get used to the rhythm. The land tells you what it needs." He held out the paper. "Found this in one of Dad's old ledgers. Thought you should have it." "Huh." She unfolded it carefully. It was a page from Samuel's garden journal. "Maya sees people, not roles, not histories, just hearts. I don't think I've ever been seen that way before." Maya swallowed hard. "He wrote this? Months ago. Before the stroke. Before everything." She handed it back. "He should keep it." "No," Dorian said softly. "He wanted you to have it. He just didn't know how to say it." They stood in silence for a beat. Then Maya said, "You've changed." Trying to," he admitted. "Truth is, I never really knew who I was outside of control, power, business. And now? Now, I'm trying to be someone worth trusting." Maya met his eyes. "It's not about perfection. It's about showing up, and you've been doing that." A breeze drifted through the open shed door, carrying the scent of turned earth and hope. "I want this garden to be permanent," Dorian said. "Part of the Kane legacy." "Then stop calling it that," Maya said gently. "Make it part of the community's legacy." He smiled. "You're right," she added. "Put a plaque near the gate. For the hands who came before us. That way, no one forgets why it matters." Dorian looked at her for a long time. "You're not just rebuilding this land, Maya. You're rebuilding us." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Some truths didn't need echo. They just needed space to grow. That night, Maya sat in her room, a little dirt still under her nails, her body tired in the best way. She held Samuel's journal page in her hand. She reread it. "Maya sees people." Outside her window, the stars blinked awake. The soil rested, but it remembered. Not just the pain and judgment, but the effort, the intention. In the distance, the newly dug rows lay quiet, seeds tucked beneath the surface, waiting, because healing takes time. But now, at least it had begun. The next few weeks passed in a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. Each morning, Maya rose before dawn, her steps leading instinctively to the garden. The once barren patch of land now pulsed with color-green shoots poking from tilled earth, yellow marigolds guarding rows of young tomatoes, and the soft hum of bees weaving between lavender stalks. The community came faithfully. Earl showed up every Tuesday and Thursday with stories about war, weather, and women, never in that order. Miss Ginny, the retired teacher, brought her grandchildren on weekends, teaching them how to plant like she used to teach cursive. And young Devon, the boy with the too big boots and too small voice, followed Maya around like a shadow, always watching, always learning. For the first time in a long while, there was peace. But peace has a way of making people forget that shadows don't vanish, they just step back until the sun turns its back. On a warm Thursday morning, as Maya clipped dead leaves from the beans, she noticed Rosalind approaching her steps quick, her brows furrowed. "Maya," she said low. "He's here." Maya stood. "Who?" "Gregory Linwood." The name struck like a hammer against steel. Gregory Linwood. Samuel Kane's former business partner. The man whose exit from the company years ago had been as mysterious as it was sudden. The same man rumored to have tried and failed to buy out Kane Industries before Dorian took the reins. "What does he want?" Maya asked. "Claims he's here to check on Samuel," Rosalind said. Her voice dipped in distaste. "But he didn't even ask about him first. Went straight to Dorian's office." Maya nodded once, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'll keep an eye out." Inside the main house, tension grew as Linwood lingered. He was all expensive cologne and white teeth, wearing success like a costume 2 sizes too big. When Maya saw him in the hall, he gave her a once-over, smirked, and said, "So you're the one playing nursemaid and gardener now. Quite the resume." She met his gaze evenly. "And you're still playing Parasite. How's that working out for you?" His smirk faltered, but only for a second. That afternoon, Dorian called for Maya. She entered the office to find him standing by the window, his hands tucked into his pockets, a stance she now recognized as a sign of inner conflict. "He wants to invest in the garden," Dorian said without turning. Maya blinked. "Linwood? Claims it'll improve his public image. Says he wants to give back to the community." She folded her arms. "And what do you think?" "I think he smells opportunity, not generosity." Dorian turned to face her. "But he also offered a hefty donation, enough to expand the garden, build a greenhouse, start a mobile program for underserved neighborhoods." Maya narrowed her eyes. "At what cost?" "He wants naming rights." There it was, the hook beneath the honey. "I won't let him turn this into a billboard," she said firmly. "This place was born out of something real. It can't be sold." Dorian nodded slowly. "I thought you'd say that. Then why consider it?" "Because this house, this legacy, still bleeds money. And I'm trying to keep it alive without bleeding people." Maya's voice softened. "There are other ways." Dorian looked at her. "You really believe that?" She stepped forward. "Yes, because I believe in what we've built, and I believe in the people who show up every day with nothing but their hands and hope." He studied her, then nodded once. "Then we'll find another way." But Linwood wasn't done. The next day, he returned not with money, but with leverage. He came during lunch, strolling into the garden in a pressed linen suit that didn't belong anywhere near dirt. He smiled at the volunteers, shook hands, took pictures. Then he approached Maya. "You know," he said conversationally, "I'd hate for anyone to dig too deep into your past. Sometimes roots grow in places they shouldn't." Maya's spine stiffened. "Is that a threat?" "A friendly warning," he replied. "Dorian may trust you, but trust is fickle. And the media, well, they love a good story, especially when it involves redemption." She stared at him. "Do what you have to. But I won't sell the truth to keep your secrets." He leaned closer. "Then I hope you're ready for the consequences." That night, Maya sat alone on the back porch, watching the fireflies dance through the twilight. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held a cup of tea. She hadn't thought about her past in years. Not since she buried her younger brother. Not since the court case. Not since starting over. She had rebuilt her life with honesty, with labor, with love. But she knew how fragile peace could be when someone was willing to poison the well. The door creaked open behind her. "Dorian. I heard he cornered you," he said, sitting beside her. She nodded. "He's going to come after me." Dorian looked at her. "Then we stand in front of you." Her brows furrowed. "We?" He turned to face her fully. "Me. My father. Rosalind. This house. You're not alone, Maya. Not anymore." Her throat tightened, but she held back tears. "I don't want this garden tainted." "It won't be," he said. "I've already called our legal team. We're going to expose him before he gets the chance to dig. The press won't see a scandal, they'll see a bully." Maya exhaled. "You're risking a lot." He shrugged. "Some things are worth it." "Me too." And for the first time in years, Maya believed someone else might finally see her for who she truly was, not a woman hiding from her past, but one fighting to protect her future. The storm was coming, but this time, she wouldn't weather it alone. Maya stood in the kitchen early Friday morning, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee. Outside the window, the garden glistened with dew, untouched by the storm she knew was circling. It was peaceful, the kind of peace that made your skin tense, like the air just before thunder rolls. She didn't have to wait long. By 9 a.m., her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Rosalind. "You need to see this." Maya tapped the link Rosalind had sent. It opened to a local news site, one known for sensational headlines and half-baked reporting. But the article was crystal clear in its intent. Kane Estate garden director has criminal past. Court records reveal. Shocking truth about woman behind the community project. Maya's heart dropped. They had dug it up. A sealed juvenile record. Years ago, she had taken the fall for her brother, who'd stolen medication for their dying mother. He was 17. She was 19 and already working 2 jobs. The system hadn't cared about context, only charges. She'd served probation, cleaned her record, and kept her head down. Now it was back, and it had claws. Her phone rang again, this time it was Dorian. "I saw it," he said immediately. "We're handling it." "How bad is it?" she asked, voice flat. "They're framing it like a deception, that we failed to vet leadership. But more than that, Linwood's using it to call into question the entire Kane legacy. He's suggesting this garden is a PR stunt to clean the family's image run by someone with a history of manipulation. His words. Maya closed her eyes. They won't care about the truth. We will, Dorian said. I've already scheduled a press conference for this evening. You'll have the chance to speak if you want. She hesitated. And if I don't, I'll speak for you. No, Maya said. If this is my story, I need to be the one to tell it. That evening, the Kane Estate's east lawn was transformed. The media gathered behind velvet ropes. Cameras aligned like weapons. Volunteers stood at the back in support, forming a quiet wall of solidarity. Samuel Kane sat near the front, his expression calm, unreadable. Maya stood behind the podium, a soft breeze tugging at her braid. She wore no makeup, no polish, just herself. The murmurs died as she leaned into the microphone. I'm Maya William, she began, voice clear and unwavering. Director of the Kane Community Garden, former caregiver, former janitor, former waitress, and yes, a former felon. The reporters stirred. Some leaned forward, waiting for the defensive spin they expected. I was 19, she continued. My younger brother stole prescription medicine for our mother, who was dying at home. I was the only adult in the house. When the police came, he panicked. I took responsibility. I don't say that to excuse it, I say it because it's the truth. No. Maya paused, scanning the crowd. I paid my debt. Not just to the court, but to my own soul. I've spent every day since building a life out of that mistake. Not hiding from it, but learning from it. And what I've learned is this. People don't need perfect heroes. They need honest ones. She glanced toward Samuel, then Dorian. This garden was never about image. It was never about legacy. It was about roots. About giving people a place to grow, even if the world once told them they didn't belong. If that disqualifies me in your eyes, so be it. But it won't stop me from showing up tomorrow, with a shovel in one hand and hope in the other. Silence. Then a single clap. Earl, the Vietnam vet, stepped forward from the crowd, clapping slowly, his face solemn. Then Ginny, then Devon, then others. Within seconds, the lawn echoed with applause, not polite, not forced, but full-hearted. Maya stepped back, her chest tight. Dorian took her place at the podium. If anyone still doubts Maya Williams' place in this community, you're welcome to leave, because she's not going anywhere, and neither is this garden. Linwood was nowhere in sight, but the silence of his absence said everything. Later that night, Maya sat on the edge of the greenhouse, her fingers gently brushing over a sprouted basil leaf. The moon was high, silvering the rows of earth. Dorian approached quietly, handing her a mug of tea. You told your story better than any press release ever could. She nodded. It wasn't for them. It was for me. He sat beside her. You know, my father once told me that vulnerability is the most terrifying kind of power, because it requires trust in people who might not deserve it. Your father's wiser than he lets on, Dorian chuckled. He has his moments. No. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of crickets and distant laughter from the volunteers' potluck drifting through the air. Then he said, You've changed this place, Maya. She looked at him. It changed me too. He turned, his eyes searching hers. There's something else you need to know. Linwood's not done. He's trying to buy out the neighboring land put in luxury condos. If he gets the zoning changed, this garden will be surrounded by walls, shadowed out. Maya's jaw tightened. Then we fight. He nodded. We've already filed an injunction, but we'll need public support. Signatures. Media. This could get ugly. She sipped her tea. Ugly doesn't scare me. Not anymore. He looked at her, admiration evident. Why not? Because I've seen uglier, she said, and I'm still standing. The garden around them was quiet now, resting. But Maya knew the next battle wouldn't wait long. They had planted roots. Now they had to protect them. The weekend that followed Maya's public speech was a whirlwind of movement and intention. The garden had never been busier. Not with weeds or shovels, but with people, neighbors, volunteers, old friends of the Kane family, and newcomers who had read the headlines and decided to show up. Some brought food, others brought signs, and many brought their own stories of redemption, injustice, and hope. Maya barely had a moment to breathe, but she didn't complain. She worked the rows with Devon, taught Miss Ginny's grandchildren how to stake the tomatoes, and met with Dorian every evening to go over the campaign plan. Because that's what it had become now, a campaign. Linwood had filed official paperwork to rezone the adjacent property for commercial development. His plans were slick. The renderings glossy glass towers with rooftop pools, boutique shopping centers, and underground parking. On paper, it was urban revitalization. In practice, it would kill the garden's sunlight and price out the community Maya had just begun to build. On Monday morning, Maya found herself sitting in a church basement across from Reverend Thomas Green, a barrel-chested man with a voice like gravel and thunder. His congregation was one of the largest in the county, and his word carried weight beyond the pulpit. "We've always supported causes with soul," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "But this garden? This feels like justice rooted in dirt." "That's exactly what it is," Maya said, her hands folded tightly on the table. "We're not just growing vegetables, we're growing dignity." He looked at her, thoughtful. "You've got my support. I'll speak on Sunday. But Maya, Linwood has deep pockets. That man could buy his way into heaven if he thought it came with beachfront property." "I don't need to outspend him," she replied. "I just need to outlast him." By Wednesday, yard signs began appearing across town. "Save the garden, save our soil." Rosalind helped organize a letter-writing campaign, and Earl got local veterans involved. Devon's high school started a student-led fundraiser. Even Samuel, in one of his rare lucid evenings, dictated a statement that Dorian posted to the Kane Foundation's site. "This garden is not about profit. It's about healing. I may be old, but I know what matters. And this matters." But Linwood was never one to play fair. That Friday, the town council held a zoning hearing. Maya sat in the front row, her palms damp, knees steady. The chamber buzzed with tension. Linwood arrived late, sauntering in with 2 attorneys in tow. He greeted people like a politician's smiles that didn't reach his eyes. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stepped up to the microphone with no notes, no script. "This isn't about property," she began. "It's about people. It's about kids who come to our garden after school because it's the only green space they have. It's about elders who share stories while planting collard greens. It's about a man in a wheelchair who said the soil made him feel alive again." She looked around the room, catching the eyes of the council members. "I know what Linwood's offering looks shiny, but you can't build legacy on shadows, and you can't replace sunlight with steel." The applause that followed was brief but honest. Then Linwood's attorney stood. He spoke of growth, economic stimulation, jobs, and modernization. He said words like inevitable progress and market demand, but none of it felt rooted. It felt corporate, hollow. Afterward, the council announced they would take a week to deliberate. As Maya walked out into the parking lot, Linwood caught up with her. "You made quite the speech," he said, voice coated in false charm. "I meant every word," she replied. "You always were good at stirring emotions," he said. "Too bad this town runs on contracts, not feelings." She turned to him. "I'm not afraid of you." He smirked. "You should be. I've ruined better people than you." Maya took a step closer. "And yet I'm still standing. Maybe you're not as good at it as you think." He chuckled, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, annoyance, maybe even doubt. That night, Maya and Dorian sat on the back steps of the greenhouse again. The moon was high, casting silver shadows on the rows of plants that had become more than just crops. They were witnesses to a fight much older than zoning laws. "I've never seen Linwood rattled before," Dorian said, sipping from a flask. "He's used to people folding," Maya replied. "We're not made of paper." Dorian looked over at her. "Do you ever wonder why he's so invested in this?" "I've been wondering that since day one." Dorian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded folder. "I did some digging." Maya took it, opened the flap. Inside were old documents, contracts from years ago, a buried clause. Linwood had once tried to develop the Kane estate itself, but Samuel had blocked the proposal in his final months as CEO. Linwood had lost millions in preparation. "It's revenge," she said. Dorian nodded. "Part of it, yes, but also greed. He sees this land as unfinished business." "No." Maya clenched her jaw. "Then let's finish it for him." He leaned back, looking at the stars. I never thought I'd fight for something like this. Not when I was in boardrooms every day. But now, it feels like the only thing worth fighting for. She looked over at him, her voice soft. Welcome to the real world, Kane. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Maya said, Tomorrow, I want to start building benches in the east corner. Make it a reflection space. May, I'll get the lumber, Dorian said, and as they stood to leave, Maya glanced once more at the garden, its rows still young, still vulnerable, but holding fast. Because this wasn't just soil. This was a line drawn in it, and she wasn't going to let anyone cross it without a fight. By sunrise, Maya was already in the garden, kneeling in the soft dirt of the east corner. She moved deliberately, planting the first post of what would become the reflection space, an idea born from a simple need: stillness. A place for people to come not just to work the soil, but to feel it. To breathe, to heal. Dorian arrived just after 7, hauling lumber over his shoulder like a man who'd never worn a $1,000 suit. I didn't know where to put the cedar planks, he said, grinning. But I figured the woman with the shovel gets to make that call. Maya smiled faintly, wiping sweat from her brow. Over here's good. We'll build the benches first, then the trellis. They worked in silence at first. The morning filled with the sounds of hammering, birdsong, and the soft crunch of footsteps on mulch. By 8, a few volunteers had arrived to help. Devon ran tools back and forth like an eager apprentice, and Earl sat in a lawn chair, offering unsolicited advice in between